The world at the dawn of the 21st century. Globalization continues apace as intercontinental trade increases. The growing together of national and supranational economies all over the globe is reflected in the vast quantities of goods being shipped across the oceans every day of the year. Many of these goods are transported in containers, but there are exceptions. For not every consignment can be loaded into a standardized container. Brake, on the lower reaches of the River Weser, one of Germany's most important seaports. The geographical situation could hardly be better. Just 26 kilometers from the estuary leading into the North Sea, the port of Brake can accommodate large seagoing vessels. Each year, more than 5.4 million tons pass through Brake. This makes it the second largest port in Lower Saxony after Wilhelmshaven. The port of Brake, its ship's berths and its transport facilities are owned by Niedersachsen Ports, which belongs to the state of Lower Saxony. The day-to-day running of the port and all cargo handling operations are performed by the J.Müller company. At peak periods, up to 1,000 workers are employed in the port and its immediate vicinity. The Weser estuary 200 years ago. The first chapter of an ongoing success story was written in a small upriver settlement. The first ship's berth was created in 1787. Incoming goods had to be unloaded onto smaller, flat-bottomed boats, for only certain types of vessel could navigate the shallow waters between Brake and Bremen. Between 1891 and 1895, a major program of river works was undertaken to improve the navigability of the Weser. In addition, the port's facilities were modernized. A navigable channel with a depth of 8.35 meters was created to provide larger vessels with access to Brake. Today, ships of up to 270 meters in length and with drafts of up to 12.20 meters can reach Brake at high tide. Continuous upgrading of the cranes and loading equipment has enabled Brake to meet the ever-increasing demands of today's port service users. At present, the port pier is almost 1,700 meters in length. The port facilities provide outstanding operational flexibility, but over the years, Brake has come to specialize in the handling of certain types of cargo. For example, Brake is the leading German port for the import of feedstuffs. Most of the feedstuffs come from South America and are used by local farmers to feed pigs and poultry. This pneumatic unloader works like a giant vacuum cleaner. It can unload up to 800 tons of feedstuff per hour. The dock worker's job description has, over the years, changed beyond all recognition. Nowadays, machines perform most of the backbreaking jobs that used to be performed by longshoremen. Even so, dockers still have to work irregular shifts and have to be able to take bad weather, dust and noise in their stride. Having sufficient storage capacity is essential in the cargo handling business. An imposing landmark against the North German skyline. These 80-meter-high silos are amongst the largest of their kind in the world and can hold up to 330,000 tons of feedstuffs or grain. Some of the cargoes imported through Brake are transported onto the customer in barges. Brake is not only well served by road and rail, it's also accessible via inland waterways. The enormous storehouses for weather-sensitive goods are located at the northern end of the port. Cellulose, or wood pulp, is the main component in the manufacture of paper. 1.3 million tons of wood pulp are imported into Germany through Brake every year. It's the main port of entry for this important raw material. The wood pulp is imported from North and South America and also from Scandinavia, Spain and Portugal. The wood pulp is generally destined for paper factories in Germany, Austria and Poland. An experienced workforce performs these loading and unloading operations with speed and precision. That's the key to the port's success in this particular handling sector. Since the exporting of lumber to North America emerged as a major business field a few years ago, the port handling facilities have undergone continuous upgrading. The lumber is shipped to the port in protective plastic sheeting from sawmills in Germany, Austria and the Czech Republic. It is then exported to the USA, where it is used by the home construction industry. The handling of lumber has increased dramatically since 2003, and some 2 million cubic meters of this commodity now pass through the port. The softwood is sawn, planed and dried in high-tech sawmills and then sent on to Brake by road or rail. Inside the port, the lumber is brought from the warehouses to the quayside on trailers. The lumber is positioned for loading onto the waiting vessels by means of forklift trucks. The final stage of loading is performed with the aid of the onboard crane installations on the special-purpose cargo ships. These ships can hold up to 50,000 cubic meters of timber, enough for the construction of around 1,000 single-family houses. Because of the enormous quantities involved, it can take up to 5 days to load the vessels. Usually, space has to be found for more than 100 different lengths and qualities of lumber. That means the loading operation has to be planned very carefully. When the cargo holds have been completely filled, the packages of timber are stowed on the ship's decks. The long journey across the Atlantic can finally begin after the cargo has been carefully secured. The handling of steel products is a particularly tricky business. Each year, around 500,000 tons of steel in the form of girders, pipes, panels and rails are exported via Brake. When it comes to loading steel rails, the longshoremen need to have an eye for detail. Here you can see 2 crane operators performing a so-called twinned crane loading maneuver. Loading 60-metre-long rails from special-purpose railway trucks into the ship's hold is all part of the job. For this operation, they use powerful cranes capable of lifting 88 tons of weight. The German iron and steel industry uses the port of Brake to export its products to destinations all around the globe. Giant components for wind turbines, another piece of German technology much in demand abroad, regularly turn heads on the roads in and around Brake. Experience is the key to the safe and efficient handling of items that are almost 50 metres long, and their length is not the only difficulty. Their surface area makes them susceptible to gusts of wind, something the cranes operators always have to bear in mind. Besides the rotor blades, wind turbine tower segments and nacelles are also exported via Brake. Special-purpose floating cranes are used to lift some of the heavier components, which can weigh as much as 220 tons. Another major activity is the handling of sulfur. It's one of the waste products created during the extraction of natural gas from gas fields. It generally arrives at the port in rail tankers. The sulphur is kept at a temperature of 150 degrees Celsius in the railway trucks so that it remains liquid. That means it's not exactly cold. In Brake, the sulphur is either stored in heated tanks or cooled and converted into solid form. If it's exported in liquid form, the sulphur has to be transferred to cargo vessels with specially heated storage tanks. If it has already been cooled, it is shipped in conventional bulk carriers. Inside the port, the sulphur is transported in solid form on conveyor belts. Every year, around 700,000 tons of sulphur arrive in Brake for shipment overseas. Sulphur is used in industrial applications all over the world, in particular by companies in the chemical sector. The inner harbour. This basin forms the boundary between the port complex and the town centre. The inner harbour is mostly used by smaller marine vessels, river barges and lighters. To the west of the inner harbour, a mineral grinding plant produces basic materials for the porcelain industry. The raw minerals are shipped in from Norway. Hobby anglers share these waters with a small fishing fleet based in the harbour. Water sports enthusiasts are also catered for. At the riverside pier, there is a difference of almost 4 metres between low and high tides. The inner harbour has a lock and is thus largely independent of the state of the tide. As in any other seaport, rights of access are now granted strictly in accordance with the ISPS code. The smooth running of a port such as Brake involves the careful coordination of a myriad of operational functions. That means all the port users have to confer at regular intervals. And it's not just the day-to-day operations that require meticulous organisation. New challenges are constantly presenting themselves. Technical plants, port structures and buildings have to be adapted to meet constantly changing commercial requirements. The development of the port is ongoing. A major extension is currently underway at the northern end of the port complex. This project is scheduled for completion in 2009. It will increase the land area of the port by some 30 hectares. Additional ship's berths are also being created. When the extension is completed, the port complex will cover an area of more than 110 hectares. The future in Brake looks bright as the port prepares itself for international competition in the years ahead.